I'd like to welcome you and thank you all very much for joining our webinar. My name is Iva Bedenko from ENoLL. We are the partner responsible for the communication and dissemination activities of the SCORE project. And the webinar was organized in collaboration with Elina from IHS. Who is leading the second work package on coastal city living labs design, implementation, and evaluation of the SCORE project. So this webinar is the second in the SCORE webinar series, and our aim is to present the different activities that are implemented by the SCORE project. The first one was about the potential of ecosystem-based adaptation in coastal areas. And if you're interested, you can find it on YouTube as well. And our next webinar should be in the March-April timeframe, but I invite you to check our social media channel and the SCORE website just to be kept updated. But for today, the aim of the webinar is to discuss co-creation and co-design, and with examples for nature-based solutions in cities. So this will be our agenda. We will have 3 speakers, 2 SCORE partners, so Marta de los Rios White from ENoLL and Elina Makousiari from IHS. And they will both talk about the concept of co-creation and co-design, how they are implemented within the SCORE project, and with a focus on some specific tools and methods. And we have a third speaker, a guest speaker, Iva Bedenko from the City of Zagreb, and she will talk about the experience from Zagreb as part of the proGIreg project. And at the end, the third item on the agenda, we'll have a Q&A session. So you can raise, at the end, you can raise your hand and we'll give you the speaking rights to ask your questions or ask it in the Slido. I will show you right now how to access it here. So we'll see if we can use the Slido for the questions. We'll give you a bit more instruction at that time. So just for now, I would like to ask you to open slido.com and enter the code that you see here. So 1523263. So I'm leaving the slide so you can access it. We will have some bit of an interactive breaks, let's say. So if you join the Slido, and we can ask you some questions. Just for now, while you try to do this, I will briefly introduce our project. So SCORE stands for Smart Control of the Climate Resilience in European Coastal Cities, and it is an EU-funded project under the Horizon 2020 program. And the project is led by the Atlantic Technological University in Sligo, Ireland. And the project aims to develop a network of 10 coastal city living labs that will address water and climate-related hazards, such as sea level rise, and in order to improve the climate resilience of coastal cities and using ecosystem-based approach and smart technologies. So I really invite you to check out our website if you want to find out more about the project. There was also a webinar organized last year, I think in March, that is available on our YouTube channel as well, that presents the whole concept of the project and the living lab methodology that we're following. So if you're interested, this will be a great watch, I think. And now, just before I give the floor to our first speaker, I hope you were all able to access the Slido page. We just have one question for you here. So we just wanted to ask, just to get to know you a little bit better, which country you're currently living in. So if you go on Slido and you had entered the code, you should be able to write down your answers. Great, I see that the first one are already answering. So we see that the Netherlands is very well represented, which was also the case for our last webinar. But I think we have a little bit more diversity this time, a lot more countries than last time. Yeah, still the Netherlands I see from all the, so we already had 30 participants that answered. But yeah, so we're going as far as Indonesia, so this is very nice. Croatia, so yeah, we're very happy that we're all able to join and follow this webinar from all these different places. This is very good, and yeah, I see that there is a lot of diversity in the countries. So now I will give the floor to Marta for her introduction and presentation.
Thank you very much, Iva. So, good morning, everyone. My name is Marta de los Rios. I am a senior project manager and capacity builder at the European Network of Living Labs. I'm very excited to be here with all of you today and tell you a little bit about why co-creation and co-design is so important when working in innovation processes, and especially in living labs. And afterwards, I will explain a little bit about the difference between co-creation and co-design. But first of all, I want to ask you, what do you think co-creation is, and which words or ideas do you associate with it? So you can go to the Slido again, and you can type in for a few seconds there. So let's see what you think. Participation, great. Collaborative, stakeholders. Collaborative, very big, that's really good. Keeps getting bigger, even better. Collaboration, envisioning different ideas, multicultural, equal participation, innovative. Great, these are great ideas. Inclusive, meaningful engagement, that's great. Democracy, iteration. Great, really good ideas here. And I can see that you all know a little bit about what co-creation is. So keep going there, put in your words. We are going to keep them on our side as well. But now, thank you, Meva. So if Elina, you can share your screen so I can start the presentation. Thank you very much, everyone, for your participation. Yeah, perfect. So first of all, let's talk a little bit about living labs. So living labs, as we know them, are ecosystems of co-creation and are complex systems where ideas, institutions, regulations, and policies combine, creating an environment where innovation can multiply. What co-creation does for living labs is that it creates a path for all of these components to integrate in a way that innovation can spread and multiply. It is very important to understand, so click. It is very important to understand that co-creation goes beyond the generation of new solutions, as it can lead to reconfigure the system in which it is taking place, the innovation is taking place. So in other words, co-creation is not limited to a single solution, innovation, or product that is being developed during the innovation process, but it is expanding and influencing the entire ecosystem and beyond. Thus, what co-creation can be defined as is as a multi-level process for boosting the participation of end users in innovation processes. And even though the concept was initially mostly used in the private sector, referring to testers in the final phase of the design of products and services, in more recent times, it is being used throughout the entire life cycle of the innovation processes, understanding the impact that it has in the entire process. In urban living labs or in coastal city living labs, as our project score is referring to, for example, we see that citizens and the different actors that are interacting with the cities are involved during the whole life cycle of the innovation process. What co-creation is doing in urban living labs and in coastal city living labs is capitalizing on the knowledge of all of these different actors and into the collective knowledge that they are generating when working together towards finding a solution to a challenge that the city has. Considering that co-creation has the potential and the power to influence entire ecosystems, it is important to put in place comprehensive co-creation processes using the right methodologies to really harvest into the collective intelligence of all these stakeholders that are involved in the innovation process. And it is important to understand that the tools and methods are not universal and that they need to be adapted for the specific context in which you are working, especially to make sure that everyone that is involved in the co-creation process is included and that all of these, the values, beliefs, needs, and expectations of all of these different stakeholders are taken into account and balanced in a way that will help you overcome the barriers that you have identified. At the European Network of Living Labs, we consider 6 different characteristics that are common to all of the living labs. And you can see that some of the words that I have been mentioning are shown in these graphs. So the first of them is co-creation, which is what brings us today. We are talking as well about a multi-method approach, which is related with all of the different tools. that we are using also multiple stakeholders that are included into the entire innovation process. So now that we talk a little bit about the importance of co-creation in living labs and innovation processes, I want to explain to you the difference between the two words, co-creation and co-design, which are two different terms that people often confuse, and sometimes they are treated as synonyms. So when we talk about co-design, we are talking about a specific instance in the broader process of the co-creation. It refers to a process in which citizens or different stakeholders are at the very heart of the design process of a specific solution, which can be a product or a service that is answering to a specific need. While with co-design, we are talking about not just about the specific design of the solution, but we are talking about the entire innovation process that is aiming at modifying the context and the system, and that includes the entire life cycle of the co-creation and the innovation process. So in SCORE specifically, we refer to co-creation as the process in which we are creating consistent and sustainable coastal city living labs, while we refer to co-design as the process in which solutions that are needed to adapt to climate hazards in each coastal city are designed. With this slide, I finish my intervention. Thank you very much. And if you have questions, we will have some space at the end, as my colleague Eva mentioned. And I hope that you now have a little bit more of a clear understanding of what co-creation is and the difference between co-creation and co-design. So now I will give the floor to my colleague Elina, who will be presenting the SCORE Co-Creation Toolkit, and she will be explaining to you a couple of tools and methods that you can use during the co-creation processes. Thank you, and Elina, all yours.
Yes, thank you very much, Marta. So good morning, everyone, from my side. My name is Elina Makousiari, and I work at IHS, the Institute for Housing and Urban Development Studies of the Erasmus University in Rotterdam. And as Marta briefed, I will present you the SCORE Co-Creation Toolkit, with which we aim to actually make more tangible, in a way, those concepts of co-creation and co-design. So a little bit of background information. SCORE, already Eva mentioned, and you can also see the YouTube video she referred to. With SCORE, we're working on one of the many living lab processes, which is called the integrative process, which has three main stages: the problem space, the solution space, and the deployment space. And we're currently on the solution space. And of course, each stage has a different steps within. So what we did with the co-creation toolkit within SCORE is that we did an extensive research on scientific and great literature, but also in other European projects with similar focus. And we made this collection, clustering the tools in three main categories, which are in line with the two stages that we are so far with SCORE. But of course, our intention was to have a broader knowledge output out of it. So outside, but also after SCORE. So what we did is that we further clustered the tools into categories and also simplified the terms so it can be relevant to a broader audience. So we have tools for need identification and analysis, which you can use with your participants to explore and uncover needs, barriers, or values. Ideation and visioning tools that include innovative and interactive tools to help your participants come up with ideas and visions of solutions upon specific problems. Strategy development tools, which can help you plan and strategize your future into concrete actions with your participants. Prototype and testing to experiment and test in real life developed ideas and solutions. And of course, feedback and evaluation tools, which you can use if you want to check your participants' reactions, preferences, or even oppositions to a developed idea or solution. So this collection, as it is, it contains an extensive list of tools, and this by itself can be quite overwhelming. So what we did is that we create a series of selection criteria, which you can use and can help you support so you can choose the most appropriate tool for your case. So under each category, you can find tools with different formats, different facilitation levels, so skills required from your side as a facilitator to use the tool, different target groups in terms of expertise, So if any specific skill or background needed from your participants to be able to participate and get engaged, different group sizes, but also an indication for the time needed for each tool. So if we see that in an example, let's say we work on a project X that it's on an early stage and you want to bring in for the first time stakeholders so you can do a situation analysis. So you gather information from them, identifying the context of the project. You're quite new in these co-creative activities. So first, we would say that need identification and analysis would be the target that you have for this activity. And you want something simple that can be a template that can be used online or in a physical setting, low facilitation level, because we're new at that. Nothing specific required from your participants, so low group expertise needed, but you haven't decided yet which will be the group size. Can it be 5 people or also can it be 25? So based on that, within these categories, SWOT analysis would be the most appropriate tool to use. I want to highlight here that this is just an example, an illustration how this selection can go, but of course you're free to use one or more or all the selection criteria based on your needs. So we see the SWOT analysis as a tool. It's a planning tool that can help you unfold strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So what the acronym stands for your project, for your case. So you use this matrix with your participants and you gather information about the internal and the external environment that is relevant for your project. So this positive versus negative and internal versus external are the basic criteria based on which the information is actually placed on the right order of this matrix. So we go back to the project X. We're working on the example, which is related to climate change. You bring your participants in either in a physical setting, as you can see on the photo, but also in an online setting on the left side of the screen as an example. And your focus will be what would be the future development of the project. So you want to gather information from your participants about it. So this is just an illustration of how the SWOT analysis can look like at the end. So as internal, good qualities of the environment could be that you have a strong team and a strong communication network that is existent and you can actually utilize in the long run or the short run. But also internally, there are also factors that can be as disadvantages for your project, such as the limited human resources or limited funding. As for the external environment, of course, there are some attractive external factors which can be in favor of your project, such as the availability of open data from other organizations which can be utilized, but also the fact that climate change awareness, which is the theme of the project we're working on, is on the top priorities of the local government's agenda. But of course, at the same time, there can be threatening factors externally, which are beyond your control and can actually cause trouble to the implementation of the project. As for example, the limited access to the available data. And here you can see that an opportunity can at the same time be a threat. Limited political support and engagement, or of course, unpredictable climate change effect, which can be, of course, outside of your control, but can actually have an impact of it. And lastly, I would like to close with some important remarks to take into consideration before or while using this toolkit. So selecting your stakeholders is very fundamental before starting a co-creative activity. It is very important to select the right people and engage them on the right time within a longer process or a project. So you make sure at the end you have the right result out of each tool. So under the need identification and an analysis category, we can already suggest 2 of the tools that it can help you choose your stakeholders. Also, each tool can be used as a standalone exercise, so you can derive direct results out of it at once, but also can be a part of a longer multi-step process, meaning that the results of one tool can be used as an input for a follow-up activity with a different tool. And also, important to say that this guide is not a step-by-step guide that you can follow from its beginning to its end. Each facilitator or facilitating team or context, most importantly, it's very unique. So this guide is only supportive to your co-creation journey and use as an inspiration, of course. Here you can see also some examples of real life co-creative sessions we had over the core workshops. And I would like to conclude here my presentation. Thank you very much. Maeva, the floor is back to you.
Maeva, you are muted.
Here, sorry. Yes, so I will give the floor to Iva, but first we had a question for you, another one on Slido. So here, and I will let Elina, Marta, and Iva comment on your answers. So if you do not have the link for those who joined a bit later, you just need to go to slido.com and enter the code that you see on the left side of the screen. I see already quite a lot of answers. I don't know, Iva or Marta, if you want to say a few words.
Yeah, I'm very excited to see that you have put context, and I see it in several different questions, because it's something that we have been mentioning and that I mentioned especially during my intervention, that you need to be fully aware of the context so you can implement co-creation. So great there.
Yes, of course, the context is key. But if the question is a key factor to designing a nature-based solution, besides context, should also be from our side inclusion and co-creation, which is something that I'm going to talk about, and which is, I guess, the topic of the whole webinar. So I will start when you stop sharing your screen.
Great. Well, I see there was a lot of ideas from the participants. I will stop sharing, and Iva, then you can start.
Okay, wait. Okay, do you see the whole screen? Okay, so hello everybody, my name is Iva Bedenko. I work in the City of Zagreb, and today I'm going to talk about our experience with the co-creation of the nature-based solutions in the proGIreg project. So to start off, I have to introduce my city. The City of Zagreb is a middle-sized Southeast European city. It's close to the seaside, like an hour and a half drive, close to the mountains. It's in the continental climate, and it is situated between the foothill of Medvednica mountain and the plain of River Sava. It's quite a green city. It's about, I think the whole administrative area is about 75% green. So we have a lot of greenery, but of course, there are parts of the city which are not green enough, and we have to put some structure in this whole situation. What more can I say about Zagreb? Its surface is 641 square kilometers, and it's divided into city districts. And the largest city district in Zagreb is Sesvete. Actually, Sesvete is where we are developing the proGIreg project interventions. So a little bit about the project. It is financed by the Horizon 2020 program. It was supposed to last for 5 years. It was prolonged for another 6 months because of the COVID situation. It started in June 2018 and it will end in November of this year. So I work in the City Office of Economy and Environmental Protection and Strategic Planning. We are local coordinators. Zagreb is one of the front-runner cities, along with Torino and Dortmund and Ningbo in China. And of course, we have follower cities and we have local partners. So I can send you all the presentation later with all the data. So in the eastern part of Zagreb, there is a district called Sesvete, which is the largest district and the youngest by population. And in its very center used to be this old meat processing industry that we have, that hasn't been operating for, I think, some 15 years. And now the city district, the people of Sesvete want to reclaim this space because it's in the very center. So we are doing this by introducing nature-based solutions. Here is the image of our living lab in Sesvete. So now about co-design and co-creation. This is something that is the topic of today's webinar. And this has been something that's been very useful to us, and that there's been like a really great learning experience for us. Because before this project, we haven't heard about nature-based solutions and we haven't heard about co-design. So we had to learn by doing. Actually, the co-design process was organized by Clay, who is one of the partners in the project. And they have organized 3 co-design workshops to initiate the process of co-design that we had to learn about. So we invited local stakeholders, all the ones that we have recognized as important, that we recognized as relevant. And of course, after the initial co-design meetings, we had some special work groups and meetings to elaborate on the topics further. So at the co-design meetings, we have invited local self-government, the elementary school and the high school in Sesvete, and music school, local museum of Sesvete, local sports clubs, Roma community, assisted living community with people, for people with autism. And we also invited, as we have decided during the course of the project and during our co-design meetings, that one of the urban gardens that we are going to develop will not be an ordinary urban garden with the allotment gardening plots, but a therapeutic garden for people with disabilities. So we have also decided to invite the institutions and the therapists that work with those people, both in the Sesvete area and in the other parts of Zagreb. I'm just going to give you an overview of the interventions that we have done in the project. So first of all, and which has already been operating in the beginning of the project, is the info point. It's like a venue for the meetings of the project, but also it has become some sort of a hotspot in Sesvete for young people and for all the people who are interested in topics that are related to nature-based solution, to gardening, to urban agriculture, and all kinds of ecology topics. And at the same time, it operates as a chess club, so it's quite a visible venue, and people come there and people see the exhibitions, people see what we are doing. So it's a very good starting point to disseminate our project results locally. Then we have expanded on the urban gardens project that we have in Zagreb. Zagreb has been operating for the last 10 years this urban garden project with 14 gardens, with each one has 100 and something plots. It's a little more than 2,000 plots in the whole city, which is given, these plots are given to the citizens free of charge, and there they can grow their own vegetables and flowers of course, respecting some ecological criteria. So they have to be, this has to be like biologically clean. And so Sesvete has 2 city gardens. One of them will be modernized within the course of the proGIreg project. So it's going to be it's just now in process. So we are going to do solar pumps that will distribute, that will get the groundwater, which is used for the gardens, and they will distribute it to all the plots. And this water will also be purified by solar photocatalysis, which means it will be not only good for watering the garden, but also for drinking. Another thing that we did was we designed this therapeutic garden with input of future users or therapists within the co-design process. The designer is also a father of a child with special needs, so he was already somehow involved in the project. And there you can see these are the children from the Little Home, which is the daycare center for children with disabilities. That is the main managing partner for the therapeutic garden. Then on the top right, you can see the design, and on the bottom right, you can see the therapeutic garden as it is now. So it was open in June of 2021. And as you can see, this is what the proGIreg project is all about. It's about reclaiming the land that was occupied by now abandoned industry. So I think this image sort of sums it up, where you can see that this space starts to make sense, but you also see the rest of the former industry in the background. So hopefully this will all the whole area in maybe a decade will be urbanized in a way to serve the community. So I have some more pictures of the workshops that have been done by the users of therapeutic garden. There are 3 institutions that organize everyday use. And of course, the inclusion, which is also super important. There was a children's play organized with the children from the Mali Dom, which means Little Home daycare center, and the children from schools and kindergartens, the healthy children who then had the opportunity to socialize with those kids. And to remove the stigma and the fear that sometimes existed that prevents them from understanding that they are all children. And so another one of our nature-based solutions that we have developed is a modular urban farm that connects the technologies of aquaponics, which integrate aquaculture and hydroculture in a way that very little water is used, and the fish and the vegetables that are grown there can be grown without chemicals and very clean. It's they call it like post bio gardening. And of course the green roofs and green walls, who are also in a way being tested on this modular urban farm. And it also provides public access and knowledge transfer to all interested parties. So we have organized a couple of workshops about organic gardening, and it was open to local residents, to farmers, to entrepreneurs. So anybody who wants, they can come there and they can inquire about the technologies and how this all operates. Another one which is still in process is the new bicycle path, like a pedestrian and cycling path. The initial idea was to connect the center of Sesvete to this new housing development, but for reason of problems that we have encountered, we have changed the route. So now it crosses the living lab area from east to west, but it's still in planning procedure. And of course, one of the most important nature-based solution is not the physical implementation, but the integration of these measures in the new regulation. So we are developing a proposal of guidelines for low carbon development planning in accordance with European green policies. And they will be used to foresee a new procedure for spatial plans. This will, of course, include participatory process or co-design, of course, with citizens. And the final aim will be low carbon development and energy transition. So about the monitoring, is of course what is important. Co-design is important, but it's also important to monitor the results and to see if the results have lived up to our expectations. So we have developed several types of monitoring tools. One of them was the general questionnaire where we have asked a number of people in the living lab area and also in the control area to talk about their ideas of the space that they live in and their experience. So this was all based on four basic topics, which are human health, inclusion, ecology, and economy. So this is still in process. We don't have the results yet, but we will know more when this is done. And of course, with the monitoring and the questionnaires, we had the problem with the therapeutic garden because we needed some input from the users, and many of the users are not verbal. So through the project, we developed this tool. We have used like a table with the users, their age, their status, and then the ones that are verbal were asked to write down 10 words that they connect with using of the therapeutic garden. And for the non-verbal ones, their caretakers gave like an overall impression of how beneficial it is for them. So this is also a work in progress, this word cloud. So but as you can see, it brings a lot of joy to those children and to the grown-ups. So another thing that I wanted to mention is the replication process that we are also doing in the course of project. So we have done 2 replication workshops in last year. One was local or regional sort of, the other one was international. So we came to the conclusions that many of the nature-based solutions that we have developed can be developed in various scales, and of course the one that that had the most interest by the people was the therapeutic garden. So just another image that I really love. This image. This is the mother of this boy Marco, and they are working on this on the therapeutic garden. They're flowering the lettuces, as you can see. So what makes me personally happy is that what we have done in this project is actually being in use, and it's really beneficial for its users. So I guess the co-design process was really useful in defining what we need and how to suit somebody's needs. So I guess this is all from my side, and thank you for your attention. You have my email, so if you have any extra questions later, you can feel free to contact me.
Thanks, Eva. We do have a lot of questions on the chat box, and I can mention, let's say there are 2 sets of questions. One is about the sustainability. A lot of the participants are asking how to ensure the long-term sustainability of these gardens. And maybe you can mention about the cost as well as challenges of implementing this.
Okay, so with a garden like this, there is the sustainability or the benefit is not financial, of course. It's a cost. It has to be funded the building was the construction was funded by the project in 100% amount, but the maintenance will be funded by the City of Zagreb. So it's not something the gain in this particular intervention is not financial. It's like a social gain and a health gain. So maybe it can be regarded as a social measure.
And can you also mention about some challenges maybe in co-designing or in implementing these nature-based solutions in Zagreb?
Well, about the challenges, I think the greatest challenge is to recognize the people that you have to invite. So we worked really hard on that. I think that what helped us greatly is that one of the partners, one of the local partners is an NGO from Sesvete who have been the link, who have served as a link to the local community. So there are people who know everybody in Sesvete. It's a sort of a tightly knit community. So we had entrance to the thoughts of the people of Sesvete, and it was really helpful. And of course, with the therapeutic garden, we had to plan it on a larger scale. So we have gathered the therapists that work with children and grown-ups with disabilities, and we asked them to give us input. So then we wrote up a program, what we need to have in the garden to satisfy the needs of all the potential users. So this is another thing.
Thanks, Eva. I guess we have one last question. There is a clarification regarding also the therapeutic garden. You mentioned it a while ago, but maybe just to summarize, how did you come up with the idea of a therapeutic garden? Was it based on the co-design process because of the community needs?
Well, actually, as I mentioned before, the Zagreb has this urban gardens project for 10 years now. So the people in the Office of Agriculture who have managed this project have received, they have constant communication with the users, and they have received many requests for raised garden beds for people in wheelchairs. And then since Mali Dom or Little Home is an institution that is operated by the City of Zagreb, it's organized by the City of Zagreb, and it's part of the city government. We have also talked with them, and they also have the need for outdoor space for people with disabilities. And just recently, we spoke with one of the therapists who was of great help when we were organizing this program for the therapeutic garden. And he said that his experience is that, especially for children with disabilities, they have to be protected from the environment all the time. So everything that is done around them is done with the aim to protect them. So the therapeutic garden is a space where they can be free, where they can move freely, of course with the limitations, but they are not in any danger. They can touch the plants. They can experience their surroundings much more freely than usual. So this is sort of really important to mention.
Thanks, Eva. We also have other questions that would be better suited for Marta and Elina. For Elina, there's a question regarding how many tools are there in the toolbox. Maybe you can share the rough estimate of this.
Yes, it's approximately 46, if I'm not mistaken. But the idea, so I can cover also another question I saw in the chat about if it's a scientific publication, we base this that people can refer to. So we base this as an open source. So it is available on the IHS website as an open source. At the moment, there are 46 tools. And the idea, of course, we see it as a living organism, so it will be further enriched by the course of time, also by the course of SCORE. So the idea is that we further enrich the categories, because you can see there are in some categories more tools than in other categories.
Thanks, Elina. There's also a question, is there any kind of publications about this toolkit?
Yeah, again, so far, no, it is only available on the IHS website as an open source.
Thanks, Elina. And there's on co-creation and co-design, there has been a question regarding from someone who would like to link it with landscape architecture. Maybe Marta, you can mention about what kind of projects have you been working on, or ENoLL has been working on, and maybe for SCORE as well in relation to co-creation and co-design.
Sure, thanks, Elena. And thanks for the question. So co-creation and co-design can be applied to anything that you want to work in. So in the case of ENoLL, for example, we have members all over Europe and around the world that are working with these principles on a day-to-day basis, and they range from health and well-being to energy, to environment, to climate change, to architecture, to design, to many different topics that you can think of. So when relating it, for example, with the creation of public spaces, this is a really big thing that's happening around the world. So one example is Zagreb that Iva already mentioned to us, which is an urban living lab that they are working with all of the designs around the city and different public spaces. And inside of ENoLL, we have several different projects that are related with that. And if we go specifically to SCORE, this is what we are doing. So we are taking an urban landscape in a coastal city and we are going to be co-creating and co-designing all of these different types of solutions to tackle climate change hazards and to adapt to them in the long run by using this type of concept. So long story short, yes, it can be applied to landscape architecture or any type of project that you are thinking about.
Thanks, Marta. Once again, if there are any other questions, you can write them on the chat box as well. Maeva?
Yeah, so we're just still waiting for questions if you have additional ones. Otherwise, I think then we'll be able to close the webinar. Either related to Zagreb or to the SCORE project, if you have. Also, as a reminder, we will post a recording of this webinar on our YouTube channel. So I see there are no additional questions. I'd like to tell you that yeah, I see no other questions. Perfect. I'd just like to remind you that we have a short survey. So if you can fill it in, we will send it to you by email, but I will also put it now in the chat. So this will just help us, improve our webinar, get your feedback. This will be very helpful. We will send it to you by email as well. I do see one last question, which is, do you have some cities adapting to sea level rise? I don't know if any of our speakers want to take this one. Quite a bit broader, but.
Well, in the case of SCORE, as we are talking about coastal cities, pretty much all of them, this is one of the risks that they are facing. So yes, and inside of ENoLL, for example, we also have another example, which is in the Basque Country, that they are working into creating a living lab that is working with this in mind. So specifically for SCORE, all of them.
Yeah, I see that there was a clarification. I think they were looking for example of co-creating solutions to adapt to sea level rise.
Yeah, that's what I was referring to. So yeah, within SCORE, all the 10 cities are working with all the different stakeholders and all the different actors in the value chain and in the innovation process to identify potential solutions, either physical or technological solutions that they can use to adapt to sea level rise in most of the cases.
And actually, there is one more. Whether the therapeutic garden could be applied in a country that has a tropical climate.
Oh, I'm sure it can. You just have to adapt with the species that you use there. But the point of the garden is to provide this safe space for moving and spending time, and of course whatever you do, whatever you can grow in a garden in tropical climate, you can grow in a therapeutic garden in a tropical climate. So yeah, go ahead. I think it's a great idea.
Great, thank you. I don't know if any of our speakers have any closing remark that they want to share before we end this webinar. Any additional comments for our participants?
I think if I can quickly wrap up this, I want to thank you all again for attending this. Our intention was to bring co-creation and co-design in attention. So we try to narrow down from the concepts in theory, instrumentalizing with a toolkit, and of course, seeing how co-design can be actually applied into a real case, as Iva presented this really interesting examples. As Meva mentioned again, there will be another webinar to be followed with a different theme. And again, thank you very much all for attending.